What if I told you that just 5 simple habits, practiced consistently, could completely reshape your mindset, your confidence, and even the direction of your life? You don't need to change everything overnight. You just need to start small and stay intentional. That's exactly what Stoic philosophy teaches us. The Stoics believed that real strength is built in the quiet moments, the decisions no one sees, the discipline no one celebrates, and in a world that constantly pulls you in every direction. The power to control your habits is the power to control your life. Whether you're chasing peace of mind, financial freedom, or simply more clarity in a noisy world, Stoicism offers a roadmap that's as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. And in this video, I'm going to share 5 small yet powerful Stoic habits that will not only ground you, but elevate you. These aren't empty self-help tips. They're practical, timeless principles that have helped some of history's greatest minds stay focused, resilient, and unshakable. So if you're ready to upgrade your life one small habit at a time, let's get started. 1. Own your time or be owned by it. Have you ever finished a long day and wondered where all the time went? You started with plans, maybe even a list, but somehow you ended up lost in tasks, distractions, and noise. The truth is, most people don't run their day runs them. The Stoics understood this long before the invention of phones, emails, and 24/7 headlines. They believed that time wasn't just a measurement. It was your most precious possession. You can replace lost money, you can rebuild broken relationships, but the seconds slipping through your fingers right now, once gone, they're gone forever. That's why Seneca, the Roman philosopher and statesman, didn't mince words. On the Shortness of Life, he wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." That hits hard, doesn't it? Because deep down we all know how much time we've let disappear chasing things that don't align with who we really are. And this isn't just about wasting time on obvious distractions like social media or pointless meetings. It's about something deeper. It's about living life passively, letting urgency and external demands override your internal compass. The Stoics warned us about this. They believed that if you don't claim your time with intention, someone or something else will claim it for you. You become reactive instead of proactive, busy instead of purposeful. You end up filling your schedule instead of filling your soul. The difference is subtle, but life-changing. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and master of Stoic discipline, used to remind himself every morning, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That sounds heavy, but it's not meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up. When you remember that your time is limited, you start paying attention to how you use it. You stop tolerating things that waste it. You stop chasing approval. You stop delaying your dreams. You don't wait for the perfect time. You understand that now is the only time you truly own. Think about the people who always seem grounded, focused, and calm even when the world is chaotic. Do you know what they usually have in common? They know what matters to them. They've filtered out the noise. They've stopped trying to do everything and started doing only what truly moves them forward. That kind of clarity doesn't come from adding more to your schedule. It comes from subtracting the meaningless. The Stoics taught that wisdom begins not with knowing everything, but with knowing what to ignore. There's a quiet strength in someone who guards their time, not because they're selfish, but because they know their mission. They don't jump at every opportunity. They don't say yes to please others. They say yes when it aligns with their principles and no when it doesn't. Seneca once said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere. If your time is scattered, your power is too." But when you focus, when you cut away the non-essential, your life begins to sharpen. Things start to feel lighter. You begin to move with purpose instead of panic. And here's the part most people miss. Owning your time doesn't mean squeezing every second for productivity. The Stoics weren't obsessed with efficiency, they were obsessed with meaning. They believed that time was best used for reflection, virtue, growth, and presence. Marcus Aurelius journaled every day, not to brag or build an audience, but to examine his thoughts and stay aligned with his values. He understood that just being busy isn't the same as being alive. Now picture this. You wake up tomorrow, and instead of reaching for your phone or racing to check emails, you breathe. You pause. You ask yourself, what matters most today? You choose one thing that truly matters to your mind, your soul, or your purpose, and you protect time for it like it's sacred, because it is. You're no longer just existing on autopilot. You're directing your life with clarity. And that single act, deciding to spend your time with intention, shifts everything. It's easy to blame the world for how fast it moves, but the Stoics remind us we always have the power to slow down internally. You don't need more time, you need more direction. And once you have that, every minute begins to feel different. It stops being something you're fighting against and starts becoming something you're building with. So ask yourself this: if someone followed you around for a day, what would they say your life is about? Based solely on how you spent your time. If the answer doesn't match your values, it's not too late. You can rewrite it. You can start now. Not by overhauling your life, but by making one powerful shift. Treat your time like it matters, and soon, so will your life. Seneca said it best: while we wait for life, life passes. Don't wait. Don't drift. Own your time before it owns you. 2. Build wealth, not just income. You might think that Stoicism has little to say about money. After all, it's a philosophy of simplicity, right? But here's the truth most people overlook. The Stoics weren't against wealth. They were against dependency. They didn't see money as evil. They saw slavery to money as the real danger. Epictetus put it plainly: wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. In today's world, where everyone is chasing the next paycheck, the next car, the next vacation-worthy photo, that wisdom is more relevant than ever. We live in a society that rewards consumption. Ads flood your screen convincing you that happiness is just one purchase away. We scroll through highlight reels on social media and start to believe we're falling behind. So we work harder, spend more, and often end up feeling emptier. But the Stoics would challenge this cycle. They would ask you not what you earn, but what you value. They would ask if your finances serve your freedom, or if you've become a servant to your finances. Imagine this for a moment. You're no longer living paycheck to paycheck. You're no longer anxious about bills. You're no longer spending to impress. Instead, you have enough. Not because you make $1 million, but because you've learned the power of restraint, clarity, and discipline. That's real freedom. And it begins with a mindset shift. A shift from income obsession to wealth creation. From temporary pleasure to long-term stability. Seneca, a man who was both wealthy and wise, warned of the illusion of abundance. He said, "Wealth is the slave of a wise man and the master of a fool." That quote alone is worth reflecting on every time you're tempted to buy something out of impulse or insecurity. What the Stoics teach us is that your relationship with money is far more important than the amount itself. If you're always chasing more, you'll always feel like you have less. But when you control your desires, you control your financial future. So what does this habit look like in real life? It's the daily practice of self-control. It's stopping to ask, do I need this, or am I just trying to fill a void? It's making intentional choices with your resources. Not to be cheap, but to be wise. Stoic personal finance isn't about living in poverty. It's about living in power. It's choosing quality over quantity, assets over liabilities, peace over pressure. This isn't about denying yourself every pleasure. It's about shifting your pleasure to things that are sustainable, peace of mind, a growing savings account. An investment in a course that upgrades your thinking. Money becomes a tool for freedom, not a leash that controls your every move. And let's be honest, how many people do you know who earn great money but are drowning in debt and anxiety? That's not success. That's slavery in disguise. Now ask yourself, how would your life feel if you didn't have to say yes to things just for money? What kind of person would you be if your financial choices aligned with your deepest values? What could you build, contribute, or create if you weren't held hostage by your spending habits? It's easy to blame the system. It's easy to say, well, everything's expensive, or I don't earn enough. But the Stoic mindset doesn't look for excuses, it looks for control. And no matter how much you earn, you can still practice control, you can still start small. You can still decide that your future matters more than your impulses, and you can start that today. Picture this. You come across something tempting to buy. Maybe it's a new gadget, new shoes, or a fancy dinner. Instead of saying, I deserve this, ask yourself, will this improve my character, my clarity, or my freedom? If the answer is no, walk away. And when you do, don't feel deprived. Feel powerful. You've just proven that your mind, not your desires, is in control. That's what Stoic wealth looks like. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it's strong. It's the confidence of someone who doesn't need validation. It's the peace of someone who knows they're building something lasting. It's the quiet joy of watching your savings grow, not to show off, but to protect your future self. Think of your finances as a mirror. They reflect your habits, your discipline, your beliefs. If your finances are a mess, that's not a moral failing. It's a signal, a wake-up call. And the Stoics would tell you to respond, not with guilt, but with resolve. Don't just wish for more money. Build better systems. Create better behaviors. Become someone who honors what they earn. This is why Stoicism pairs so well with personal finance. Because at its core, money is never just about numbers. It's about self-mastery. It's about resisting the urge to spend what you haven't earned. It's about finding fulfillment in what you have, not always aching for what you don't. And that kind of clarity isn't just financially wise, it's spiritually liberating. You don't have to be rich to be free, but you do have to be intentional. You have to recognize that every dollar is a choice. Every purchase is a vote for the kind of life you're building. And every habit, whether impulsive or disciplined, is either moving you closer to your highest self or further from it. So if you're tired of feeling out of control with money, if you're ready to stop surviving and start thriving, then this habit is your doorway. Start with a simple commitment. Spend less than you earn. Save a little each week, no matter how small. Learn something about investing. Track your expenses. Understand your relationship with money, not to judge it, but to master it. As Musonius Rufus, another great Stoic, advised, practice frugality. Do not be a spendthrift with what you have as if it were unlimited. In other words, treat your resources with respect, because every dollar you keep is a piece of your freedom. Every sacrifice you make now is a reward your future self will thank you for. In the end, building wealth the Stoic way isn't about numbers. It's about values. It's about building a life where your choices are driven not by pressure, but by purpose. And when you master this habit, you don't just earn money, you earn control. You earn freedom. You earn the right to live life on your terms, so choose wisely. Live intentionally, and remember, real wealth is not in your bank account, it's in your behavior. 3. Think before you react. The Stoic power of critical thinking. In a world where emotions run high, where opinions fly faster than facts, and where outrage often replaces wisdom, one of the most revolutionary habits you can develop is this. Think before you react. It sounds simple, but in practice it separates those who drift through life from those who truly lead it. And for the Stoics, this wasn't just good advice, it was sacred discipline. We live in a time of constant input. Every scroll, every headline, every conversation pulls at our attention. And without even realizing it, we start reacting instead of reasoning. We form judgments based on emotion. We believe what's trending instead of what's true. We get offended before we understand. But the Stoics, those ancient philosophers who trained their minds like warriors trained their bodies, knew the cost of impulsive thinking. They believed that mastering your thoughts was the first step toward mastering your life. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, once said, "The first step toward wisdom is silence, the second is listening, the third is remembering, the fourth is practicing, the fifth is teaching." That's not just a sequence, it's a system for critical thinking. It teaches us to pause, to reflect, and to question everything, especially our own assumptions. Because most of our suffering doesn't come from what happens to us, but from how we interpret it. Think about it. How many decisions in your life were made on impulse? How many arguments escalated not because of facts, but because of misjudged intentions? How many times have you believed something only to later realize you didn't really understand it? That's what the Stoics wanted us to confront, not with guilt, but with courage. They taught that it's not events that disturb us, but our opinions about them. And those opinions are always within our control. Epictetus, who was born a slave and rose to become one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, constantly reminded his students that clarity comes from challenging your thoughts. He said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." In other words, the world is neutral. It's our interpretations, our narratives, that give it weight. And the sooner we realize this, the sooner we reclaim our power. Critical thinking isn't about becoming cold or detached. It's about becoming precise. It's about seeing things as they are, not as we fear them to be. It's about slowing down the storm inside you long enough to ask, what's really going on here? When you build this habit, you stop reacting to every problem like it's a threat. You start responding like a leader, with calm, clarity, and purpose. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote in his Meditations, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." Coming from a man who ruled an empire, those words carry weight. He understood that power doesn't come from controlling others, it comes from controlling how you think. And when you master that, the chaos around you starts to lose its grip. But here's the part most people miss. Critical thinking starts with humility. It begins when you admit that you might be wrong, that your first impression might be flawed, that your favorite opinion might be incomplete, and that kind of self-honesty is rare, but it's also powerful, because once you stop defending your ego, you start defending the truth. Let's bring this down to real life. You get criticized. Do you lash out or do you ask if there's truth in their words? You hear a story online. Do you share it emotionally or verify it first? You feel a strong reaction building. Do you act on it or sit with it before deciding? These are the moments where critical thinking becomes a superpower. It's the ability to stand still in a noisy world and say, "Let me think." Now imagine how that could change your life. Imagine being someone who doesn't get pulled into every drama, who doesn't get rattled by every comment, who can hold space for complex thoughts without falling into extremes. That's what Stoic critical thinking creates. Not indifference, but wisdom. Not inaction, but intelligent action. And this isn't about being perfect. It's about being awake to your own mind, aware of your biases, willing to ask hard questions like, am I reacting from truth or from habit? Am I seeing this clearly or through the lens of fear? That kind of mental discipline is rare, but the people who have it, they stand out, they lead, they remain calm in conflict, rational in pressure, and grounded in values when the world is spinning. Building this habit doesn't require a philosophy degree. It requires practice. Practice noticing your thoughts. Practice questioning your assumptions. Practice slowing down your reactions and replacing them with curiosity. Start by becoming more mindful in conversations. Truly listen. Don't just wait to speak. Wait to understand. In your reading, seek out ideas that challenge you. Not just confirm what you already believe. And in moments of stress, ask yourself, what would the wise choice be here? This is what makes Stoicism more than theory. It makes it a strategy for life. Because when you think before you react, you create space. And in that space, you find power. The power to choose your response, the power to hold your ground, the power to lead yourself with integrity even when emotions are high. And if you're wondering whether it's worth the effort, remember this. Most people are being ruled by thoughts they've never examined. They're stuck in cycles of reaction, but not you. You're here to do the deeper work, to become someone who doesn't just live, but lives with intention, to build a mind that isn't swayed by every storm, but rooted in reason. So the next time you feel triggered, pause. When you feel pressure to conform, question it. When you're tempted to judge someone quickly, hold back and look again. That pause is where you stop being a puppet of the world and start becoming its student, and eventually its teacher. The Stoics didn't want followers. They wanted free thinkers. They wanted people who could stand in any room, face any challenge, and respond not with panic, but with presence. That's what critical thinking gives you. That's why this habit can change your life forever. So don't just absorb information. Don't just react. Question everything, especially your own mind, because in that questioning you'll find not only truth but yourself. 4. Speak less, say more. The power of intentional words. There's a quiet kind of power that belongs to those who don't rush to speak. In a world addicted to noise, attention, and instant expression, restraint seems outdated, almost weak. But the Stoics knew otherwise. To them, the person who could speak with clarity, calm, and purpose was someone who had already won half the battle of life. Words were never cheap. They were tools of influence or destruction, and to master your speech was to master your mind. We often underestimate the weight of our words. A careless sentence can ruin trust. An angry outburst can damage a relationship. A mindless comment can ripple across someone's entire day. But the reverse is also true. A well-timed word can uplift. A thoughtful reply can disarm conflict. A sincere expression can plant seeds of transformation. The Stoics taught that speech is not something to be used freely, but something to be used wisely. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "Let your speech be better than silence, or be silent." That quote alone could change the way we approach conversations, because let's be honest, how often do we speak just to fill space? How often do we interrupt, exaggerate, complain, or react without thinking? We may not notice it in the moment, but over time, this habit of unchecked speech creates chaos in our relationships, in our inner peace, and in the way others perceive us. The habit of intentional communication isn't just about sounding wise or appearing calm. It's about aligning your words with your values. When you speak with purpose, you speak with power, not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that resonates. People start to listen, not because you speak the loudest, but because you speak the clearest. You're not trying to win arguments, you're trying to convey truth. That's what separates noise from wisdom. Now ask yourself, have your words lately been aligned with your purpose, or have they been fueled by impulse? Have you been listening more than speaking, or are you quick to respond, to defend, to impress? The Stoics would urge you to slow down. They would ask you to observe your conversations, not just what was said, but how it was said. Was it necessary? Was it kind? Was it helpful? Seneca once warned, "We should be as careful of the words we hear as of those we speak." That means we must be just as discerning in what we absorb as we are in what we express. The world is full of empty talk, gossip, outrage, sensationalism. And if we're not careful, we begin to echo it. We trade truth for applause, depth for speed, substance for style. But the Stoics remind us that silence is not a weakness, it's a strength. It's the space where understanding grows. Imagine a life where your words carried meaning, where people trusted you not because you always had something to say, but because what you said mattered, where your voice wasn't just heard, but remembered. That doesn't come from talking more. It comes from talking better. It comes from self-awareness, emotional discipline, and the willingness to pause before reacting. In our current culture, people are rewarded for being loud. But Stoicism offers a timeless counterweight. Be intentional. Be deliberate. Don't waste your breath proving your point. Live your point. Don't always explain, exemplify. The most powerful person in the room is often the one who says the least, but means the most. And this principle doesn't just apply in moments of conflict or deep conversation. It applies everywhere, in texts, emails, social media. Every time you speak or write, you're planting seeds. What kind of garden do you want to grow? Are you scattering weeds of confusion and irritation, or are you planting clarity, kindness, and strength? Your words leave a trail. Make sure that trail leads somewhere worth going. Let's talk about listening, because this is the other side of the coin. Stoics believe that real communication begins with understanding, and you can't understand what you're too busy to hear. Listening isn't waiting for your turn to speak. It's giving someone your full presence. It's hearing beyond the words. It's recognizing emotion, context, intention. When you become a better listener, you naturally become a better communicator. People start to trust you more because they feel heard, not just tolerated. Intentional communication also demands that you learn the art of response over reaction. When someone offends you, you don't lash out, you breathe. When you feel the urge to win an argument, you ask yourself, what am I really trying to prove? When someone needs support, you don't jump to advice, you offer space. These are not just communication skills, these are emotional skills, and Stoicism is built on them. Think about someone you admire for their wisdom. Chances are they don't talk nonstop. They choose their words. They speak slowly, clearly, and with conviction. They don't interrupt. They don't exaggerate. They don't speak from ego. They speak from understanding. And that's not natural. That's trained. That's practiced. That's a result of years of self-control and inner clarity. So how do you develop this habit? Start small. Practice pausing before you speak, especially when emotions are high. Ask yourself, is this necessary? Is this helpful? Is this aligned with who I want to be? Don't just react, respond. And when in doubt, choose silence. There is nothing to lose by waiting, but there is much to gain, because sometimes the most powerful response is restraint. The more you practice intentional speech, the more peaceful your relationships become, the more people start to lean in when you speak, and the more you trust yourself not to always say the right thing, but to avoid saying the wrong thing in haste. This is what the Stoics meant by mastery of the self. It's not about silence for its own sake. It's about communication that reflects strength, not insecurity. Truth, not ego. Wisdom, not noise. And maybe most importantly, you begin to listen to yourself differently. You catch the self-criticism. You soften the internal dialogue. You speak to yourself with more patience, more clarity, more care. That too is part of the habit, because we're not just communicating outward, we're in constant conversation with ourselves. And how we speak within reflects how we live without. So the next time you're tempted to fill the silence, pause. The next time you're pulled into argument, breathe. The next time you write or speak, ask yourself, does this move me or others closer to wisdom, peace, and clarity? If not, maybe the most stoic thing you can do is say nothing at all. Because in the end, words shape lives. They shape relationships. They shape futures. So speak like it matters, because it does. 5. Rise early, rise above. Seize the morning before the world does. There's something sacred about the early morning. It's quiet, calm, and untouched by the chaos of the day. And yet for many people, those hours are wasted in sleep, procrastination, or a frantic rush to catch up. But the Stoics saw mornings differently. They understood that how you begin your day is often how you live it. The habit of rising early wasn't just about productivity, it was about ownership. It was about reclaiming your life before the world demands a piece of it. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, didn't have the luxury of a peaceful life. He carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders. And yet, in his private journals, what we now call meditations, he constantly reminded himself to get up, face the day, and return to what matters. When you arise in the morning, he wrote, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. That's not the mindset of someone who hits snooze. That's the mindset of someone who knows that every day is a battlefield of values, and the morning is when you sharpen your weapons. Let's be honest. Getting up early isn't always easy. Your bed is warm. Your thoughts are foggy. And your motivation might not have kicked in yet. But that's the point. The Stoics weren't interested in comfort. They were interested in character. And character is built in the moments when discipline triumphs over desire. When you rise early, you're not just beating the sun. You're beating your excuses. You're setting a tone for the day that says, I'm in charge. Not my comfort, not my laziness. Me. This isn't about hustle culture or shaming yourself into a 5 a.m. boot camp. It's about intention. It's about choosing to begin your day from a place of stillness, not stress. Think of how most people start their mornings. Late, rushed, distracted. They check their phone before they check in with themselves. They chase emails before they even take a deep breath. No wonder so many feel behind before the day has even begun. But what if you flip that script? What if your mornings became your most sacred time? Imagine waking up not in panic, but in purpose. The house is quiet, the sky is just starting to change. You make a cup of tea or coffee, you journal, you stretch, you breathe, you think. You do something that aligns with your values, whether it's meditation, reading, or simply sitting in silence. You don't owe that time to anyone but yourself. And that's what makes it powerful. The Stoics believed in rituals, not elaborate, time-consuming routines, but purposeful ones, things that anchored them, things that reminded them who they were. Marcus Aurelius often began his mornings by writing, not to be productive, but to reflect, to reset his mind, to remind himself that today might be his last, and that it was his duty to live it with virtue, courage, and clarity. And let's not overlook the emotional power of mornings. There's something deeply empowering about starting your day with intention. It tells your subconscious, I matter, my life matters, my values come first. That's not just good for your mindset, it's good for your soul. Because when you start strong, you carry that strength into everything else you do. But maybe you've struggled with mornings before. Maybe you've promised yourself you'd wake up early, only to fall back into old patterns. That's okay. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to take one small step. Maybe it's waking up 15 minutes earlier tomorrow. Maybe it's putting your phone in another room so you don't lose the first hour of your day to distractions. Maybe it's preparing your space the night before so the morning feels inviting, not overwhelming. Consistency is what matters, not perfection. And the Stoics would agree. They weren't interested in grand gestures, they were interested in repeated virtues. Getting up early, day after day, is one of those virtues. It's a signal to yourself that you're here to grow, to lead, to live on purpose, not by default, but by design. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." How many mornings have slipped by unnoticed, unlived, unclaimed? The truth is, your mornings shape your life. They're the one part of your day that you have full control over, before the demands, the obligations, the noise of the world comes rushing in. Why not use them to strengthen your foundation? And rising early isn't just about being productive. It's about reconnecting to yourself before the world fragments your attention. It's about preparing your mind for challenges instead of reacting to them. It's about choosing clarity over chaos, power over passivity, leadership over autopilot. Some of the world's greatest minds swore by their morning rituals. From Benjamin Franklin to Maya Angelou to Steve Jobs, the morning was their launchpad. But you don't need to be famous to benefit from it. You just need to care about your time, your values, and your growth. That's what Stoicism is about. Mastery of the self. And that mastery begins the moment you decide that comfort is no longer the boss. So, what will your mornings look like from now on? Will you let them be dictated by fatigue, habit, and distraction? Or will you reclaim them as sacred space? An opportunity to ground yourself, to choose virtue, and to rise into your potential. The choice is yours. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be willing, to try, to wake up a little earlier tomorrow, to trade 5 extra minutes of sleep for 5 extra minutes of clarity, to set your alarm not out of pressure but out of purpose. And when you do, when you commit to rising early, not for the world, but for yourself, you'll notice something incredible. You'll stop rushing, you'll stop reacting, you'll start creating, choosing, becoming. That's the real power of early mornings, not in what you do, but in who you become. These 5 small habits may seem simple, but they hold the power to transform everything: your mindset, your focus, your peace. The Stoics didn't believe in overnight change. They believed in daily discipline. So start small, be consistent, and remember, greatness isn't built in one day, it's built in how you live each day. Own your time, master your money, think before you react, speak with intention, and rise with purpose. Your future self is already thanking you. If this video brought you value, helped you think differently, or simply gave you a moment of clarity, consider supporting this channel. Like the video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom and motivation every week. Your support means everything.